Their whirlwind romance? It was written in the stars, man. Before their fateful meeting, she was already promised to another dude. Her shoes were covered in pearls, and a long veil framed her hair. A set of emerald jewelry sparkled around the girl's delicate neck. All that bling looked killer on the blue-eyed young bride. She was totally digging, watching the look come together, piece by piece. This was Lily, the young daughter of Count Roland. She was about to become part of the royal family in the Kingdom of the New Moon. The girl was dying to show her fiancé her dress. The maids told her he'd gone out to the conservatory. Tradition says the bride shouldn't see the groom the day before the wedding. But Lily didn't give a damn. She'd known Prince Richard Stuart since they were kids. They were tight. He was the first guy she did a lot of firsts with, and she fell hard for him. Her heart was bursting with sweet hopes and dreams of their future together. She wanted to find him, but stopped dead when she heard voices she recognized. She ducked behind some leaves and saw him getting all cozy with some Bella chick. He was laying a serious kiss on his redhead side piece, the one he'd been hiding. What made it even worse? Bella was Lily's sister. Richard called her a kid, said she was boring, and he didn't want that kind of love. He called the other girl his greatest pleasure while she was, really getting into it. Their little moment got crashed when they heard a weird pot crack. They snapped their heads up and caught the greenhouse's unexpected guest. These lovebirds got a serious case of the jitters, getting caught by the bride herself. Lily froze, barely managing to ask Richard to explain this whole mess. She blew up, asking how he could do something like this to her sister. Bella just smirked and asked why she was sticking her nose in the prince's business. She confidently walked up to her sister and said Richard knew what he was doing. Lily recoiled from her careless sister and demanded she leave her alone. She shook Bella so hard, she accidentally went flying backwards. The girl put on a show of being scared and turned to His Highness. Richard grabbed Lily's arm, real rough, and told her not to talk to Bella like that. He said their marriage was a sham, and she needed to get over it. Then he sweet-talked the other girl, asking her to hang with them. The prince went to kiss his bride, but she was totally disgusted. She bit his thumb as hard as she could and dug her nails into his hand. Richard felt a jolt of pain and jumped back, calling her a psycho. He moved so fast, he accidentally clipped his bride, the one he hated. His fist caught her right in the face, leaving a nasty bruise. The girl burst into tears and threatened to tell his dad about his thing with the witch's kid. Richard froze solid, knowing he was in deep trouble now. Lily gathered her thoughts and slowly rose from the cold tile floor. She calmly announced that the marriage between the Stuart royal family and the Roland family was off. The girl thought she'd put an end to it, but then a woman's hand reached for her. In a flash, Bella had her trapped in a bone-crushing hug. She said with a menacing tone that she'd shut her up for good. Lily didn't even have time to react before a potion was forced down her throat. The girl's eyes widened as she realized it was one of Bella's concoctions. She suddenly remembered the day she caught the girl in the woods. She never imagined she'd end up in that rabbit's place one day. She tried to fight back, but Bella held her down until she swallowed the poison. Lily choked, trying to clear her throat as the poison burned her raw. Bella just smirked, knowing her sister was coughing up blood. She announced, all dramatic-like, that the prince's bride had died right before the wedding. Richard played along, suggesting they tie her to a horse and send her out into the fields. They were sure the monsters would devour her because of the red moon. Lily's weak body suffered through their twisted plan until nightfall. Then, boom, she was on the ground, completely alone. She figured she was a goner when she saw a paw in front of her. The monster gently scooped up the snow-white girl in its arms. Its eyes blazed red, and nobody knew what the heck it was planning. The massive wolf stared intently at the girl bathed in the red moonlight. He hurried to drag her back to his secluded castle. Opening her eyes, Lily thought she was looking at a real angel. She figured God had sent her to heaven and squeezed her eyes shut. The next moment, she suddenly realized she was still alive. She didn't recognize the girl hovering over the bed. The maid lowered her head and announced that Lily was waking up. Lily immediately shot out of bed and demanded to know where she was. The maid smiled, introduced herself as Catherine, and said she was safe now. She explained they were at Shadow's End Manor. She mentioned that all the land in the Yarrow Wastes belongs to the Duke. The guy gave her a thoughtful look, then casually snapped his fingers. The second he did, every single candle in the castle blazed to life. Towering over the girl, he announced himself as His Royal Highness, Isaac Stuart. Lily was surprised, since he was the current king's younger brother. That made him a seriously important figure in the Crescent Kingdom. Isaac was considered the crown prince and the heir apparent. He'd pulled off some amazing military feats and was loaded and gorgeous to boot. But his dabbling in the darker arts led him astray, and he became a recluse in isolation. He vanished after that, leaving the kingdom completely in the dark. Lily got out of bed and bowed, thanking him for saving her life. She tried to finish the curtsy, but her head started spinning like crazy. Next thing she knew, she accidentally face-planted right into Isaac's arms. She didn't even need to introduce herself. He already knew her name. Lily snapped out of it, realizing he was holding her close to his chest. He set her back on her feet in one smooth move and said he knew who she was. Isaac called her the poor girl who almost became the prince's concubine. He added that dark magic and poison had messed her up pretty bad, which is why she was in a coma. The guy gave her a stern look and told her to cut the pleasantries and get some rest. Lily froze, realizing she'd been out for 2 days and missed her wedding with Richard. The weight of responsibility slammed into her like a freight train. Just thinking about what could happen to her parents made her hands shake uncontrollably. She also remembered Bella, who was so desperate to steal her spot as the bride. All these thoughts just made her body tremble even harder. Isaac's eyes bored into her as he asked if she was plotting revenge. She froze when he revealed her fiancé, her childhood sweetheart, and her sister were, well, let's just say they weren't on the up and up. They betrayed her, poisoning her with something that eats away at a person. Isaac coldly asked if she hated them for it. Lily hated them with every fiber of her being, but she was powerless to do anything about it. She knew she was no match for those two. The girl felt more and more desperate, but Isaac calmed her down. He saw her tears and told her to stop hanging her head. Isaac stroked her tear-stained face and asked her to look at him. He looked straight into her eyes and said he could teach her everything. He added that all these skills could help her get even. Isaac said that if she agreed, she'd have to stay at the Twilight Estate. Lily was still crying, but his words gave her hope. Isaac gripped the back of her head, telling her to stay with him. The girl looked totally stunned and flustered, it seemed. She knew she had nowhere else to go, which made her think about his offer. She'd always heard he was a total stuck-up, full of himself. Even though he saved her, he was still a Stuart through and through. She gave a respectful bow, still unsure if she could trust him. Lily mentioned she's already engaged, so this whole thing could stir up some serious drama. She added that she needed to make a decision after talking with her dad. The girl figured her mom would be freaking out that she was missing. She looked him straight in the eye and asked him to take her home. The proud dude was taken aback, totally confused by her rejection. Despite being pissed, he just nodded in response to her request. Lily was relieved and hurried past Isaac Stewart. She barely took 2 steps before he grabbed her wrist. The girl looked at him, surprised. The same guy who'd just said yes to her. He asked if she really planned to wander around the wasteland in her pajamas. It seemed to dawn on her only then that she was wearing a nightgown. Lily immediately turned away from Isaac and hurried to cover her chest. The homeowner sighed wearily and addressed the maid. He ordered riding clothes to be prepared, as well as a horse. Lily was still embarrassed because of how she looked. Ultimately, she was getting ready to be sent back home. Lily happily stroked the animal, silently hoping she'd be returned to the Roland mansion. She managed to bond with the beast, and they took off. Isaac Stewart watched the girl's silhouette disappear, lost in thought. The maid asked if he was really just going to let her go like that. She's the only daughter of Saint Anjou, born under a lucky star. She's got the right to inherit her family's magic potion recipe. Isaac's felt the pull of her blood on him before. She's got the power to restore his normal appearance and his sanity. The maid said it was the best way to break the curse and get back to the palace. The lord of the manor started thinking about how he could use her. He decided to send a couple of ravens to keep an eye on the girl. The guy held out his arm, and a bird landed right on it. She said we gotta help Lily when she's really up against it. Meanwhile, the girl practically sprinted into the Roland mansion. She yelled that she was back, then got the shock of her life. Right in front of her was a coffin covered in white flowers. The girl stumbled toward the coffin and saw her mother inside. She was so shocked, she almost lost it right there. Staring back at her was the woman who was supposed to be at her wedding, like yesterday. Lily collapsed on the floor in front of the body, refusing to believe it was her mom. Her body shook with sobs, while her brain kept saying it had to be some kind of sick joke. She was hunched over her mother's lifeless body, completely devastated. Lily spun around when she saw the maid, frozen in shock. She immediately started grilling her about what the hell happened. The head maid just screamed bloody murder, saying the killer was back. She stared at the tear-streaked girl, publicly accused of murder. It hit Lily so hard, she couldn't even find the words. Soon, they locked her away in the tower dungeon of Duke Roland's mansion. Lily pounded on the door like crazy when she heard footsteps. She immediately yelled that she wanted to see her father and that she was being wrongly imprisoned. She collapsed to her knees, still banging on the door with her bare hands. The girl hung her head and said she wanted to find her mother's killer. She squinted against the bright light when she saw the door swing open. Lily expected to meet anyone, but definitely not her enemy. Standing before her was Bella, the backstabber, smugly sipping tea. She dramatically dumped out the tea and said she'd heard her screaming. Bella figured her voice was already hoarse and offered her a cup of tea. She gave the girl a mocking smile as she drained the cup. Lily immediately accused her sister of everything she'd already done. In response, she just smiled and guessed she wasn't wanted there. She ran a finger down her face and asked who she was waiting for. The girl said that after Lily ran off, he had a heart attack. That news hit Lily like a ton of bricks, crushing her hope. Bella smirked and said she needed to go make his medicine. Lily squeezed her hand and looked her in the eye, like her heart just broke. She straight up told Bella that karma was gonna get her for ruining her parents. Before she could finish, Bella slapped her across the face. Bella got dead serious and said that Lily's face was all over the wanted posters. She added that Lily was gonna get what's coming to her tomorrow for all the crap she's accused of. Bella laid out her whole plan and how it's all going down perfectly. Looks like everything was planned down to the last detail, and Lily's hope was fading fast. She finally realized that Bella and Richard were trying to get rid of her. Bella relayed the prince's words, saying he was tired of playing with Lily. She leaned over the girl and said that what he loved most was fame and the throne. Lily stood up and concluded that she was the one who always messed up their plans. She looked at the witch and asked what their father and mother had done to her. The girl grabbed Bella by the throat and screamed, demanding an answer. She reminded her how her father took her in after wandering with her witch mother. Lily always treated her like a sister, no matter where she came from. Even her mother considered Bella her own child and taught her everything she knew about medicine. Lily screamed with renewed force, asking why she had done such a terrible thing to them. Bella froze and said she'd given Lily a chance to choke herself out. She was shocked that Lily traded him away just to teach some moral lesson. The next instant, Bella chanted a spell, and the room exploded with light. Her eyes blazed with green fire, ready to wipe everything out. That power instantly slammed the girl to the floor and pinned her arms down. Bella towered over Lily Roland and said she'd always hated her guts. She was jealous that her mom had her out of love, while her own mother was just a homeless witch. They both fell for Richard, but Dad only arranged things for Lily. Bella could only stand by quietly and seethe with envy. Lily immediately asked why she was blaming them for what they didn't give her. Bella turned away and said that after she was gone, she'd take everything for herself. She disappeared behind the door, adding that she'd even take her body. She said goodbye to the girl, who was bound by thorny ivy. Lily lowered her head, exhausted, and turned to the crown prince. She started shaking and confessed that she regretted leaving so recently. The girl burst into tears again, saying she wanted revenge. A raven appeared beside her, announcing that it had heard her wish. It watched her from behind, making sure she couldn't see it. After it spoke, the ivy behind the girl glowed with a bright light. The raven unleashed another wave of magic at it, aiming to completely obliterate it. His punch was so powerful, it actually shattered the dungeon tower windows. The next thing Lily knew, her hands were suddenly free. She was shocked to realize she wasn't tied up anymore. The girl stared intently at the raven flying towards her. It swooped right to her, showing off a massive ring on its leg. Lily started examining the strange little bird. The raven immediately protested, demanding she call him Karen and not treat him like some bird. Karen Farrell proudly declared himself the Crown Prince's most trusted spy. He said he'd come for her on his master's orders, to bring her back to the estate. It took Lily a second for everything he said to sink in. She asked about his escape plan, since Bella had sent the guards after him. Raven called her a dummy and asked what birds needed wings for. He flapped his wings towards the sky and said they were for flying. He landed on the windowsill and said nobody could catch them. The bird told her to get a move on and hop on his back, pronto. The little bird's words sounded so ridiculous to her that she froze. She awkwardly climbed onto the windowsill and braced herself. The second she saw the height, her confidence just evaporated. She asked what to do next, since she was afraid of heights. The bird told her to just trust him and take the leap. Lily couldn't fully trust the bird's words and started shaking even harder. Her fear was amplified by the knights, who noticed the missing shutters in the dungeon. They spotted Lily and ordered her to be captured immediately. This made her realize that death was waiting for her no matter what. She jumped down, deciding it was better to die like this than to be publicly executed. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, feeling the approach of her end. Her surprise was immense when she found herself riding on a huge bird. She was astonished by Karen Farrell's monstrous size. He told her to hold on to his feathers and brace herself for impact. Just then, the guards noticed the giant raven. They spotted the dark magic right away and started screaming their heads off. That just confirmed their suspicions like, "Yep, she's definitely a wicked witch." Lily realized her old life was toast and just accepted what was coming. She held on tight to the bird's wings, weaving through the forests like a pro. After a while, they finally made it to the Crown Prince's castle. He'd thoughtfully set out some fresh clothes for her and made sure she was comfy. Lily was still having a hard time wrapping her head around being so far from home. She went upstairs and spotted that necklace, the one from her wedding. Before that, the necklace belonged to her mother, who she loved more than anything. This emerald necklace had been passed down through the women in her family for generations. This was supposed to be a happy marriage for Lily, too. The girl bitterly recalled all those destroyed moments. She burst into tears again, fueled by rage over her mother's death. Lily felt a surge of resolve and vowed she would definitely avenge her. She wanted them to pay in blood for everything they had done. She shook off her thoughts and tears as the door to her room opened. Isaac stood before her, asking if she had made her decision. The girl gazed thoughtfully at her new benefactor. He unexpectedly announced that from this day on, she was the mistress of the Twilight Estate. Lily was surprised and thought there must be some mistake. She bowed instantly, thanking him for the help and shelter he'd given her. She was worried it could be dangerous for him, seeing as she was now a wanted woman. The girl decided to just come out and ask what he wanted in return. Isaac said she was pretty sharp for figuring out how things looked from his side. He stepped closer to her and straight up told her he needed her blood. The man slowly took the necklace from her hands to help her put it on. He explained that he was struck by a curse a few years back, and she could be the key to fixing it. Isaac asked her to give him her blood every month, on the night of the full moon for medicine. He thought she'd freak out, but she just spun right around. The girl confidently pulled his eyelids open to see the color of his eyes. She started unbuttoning his shirt, saying she was deeply offended. I think he was the most surprised of all by what was happening. The next moment, she exposed his chest and saw a dark mark. She immediately recognized them as the bonds of the lunar crown. It instantly became clear to her why he wanted to leave the royal family. She knew that every full moon he turned into a beast. On top of that, he suffered agonizing pain every moonless night. He was destined to slowly lose his mind until he wiped out the lives of everyone he loved. Lily immediately figured that Mr. Crow was cursed too. Isaac explained that the crow had been with him since he bought it at the market. Everything changed the night that witch barged in. She blindsided them, hitting them where it hurt the most. Karen shared the curse with him, keeping him from going full power. If he hadn't done that, Isaac would have turned into a monster a long time ago. Ever since then, they've been living off the grid, keeping to themselves. He remembered that powerful witch's face like it was yesterday. He swore he'd make her pay 1,000 times over for what she put him through. He petted Lily and said that they had kinda similar stories. To his surprise, the girl just took his offer in stride. She smiled and said it was a pretty sweet deal in exchange for his help. Lily smiled and offered to brew him some herbs to soothe the pain and calm him down. They were interrupted by a servant bringing a letter from His Majesty. Suddenly, she pictured her master drinking blood. The girl flushed instantly, feeling like she was intruding. She laughed and promised she wouldn't breathe a word about their little secret. Lily started explaining that she just wanted to see what his symptoms were like. The maid reassured her, saying the lunar crown's bond was a rare curse. She was amazed that Lily had a way to break the curse. Lily explained she didn't have much experience, but she was good with pharmaceuticals. She figured she might be able to make a cure from her own blood. Lily smirked, all sly, and asked if she could ever repay him for saving her life. That same day, Isaac had a guest room prepared for her. Lily was over the moon, absolutely thrilled. Isaac was a gracious host, giving her the full tour of the place. She even got permission to grow her herbs here. Isaac led her to a separate room, perfect for a lab. Lily was blown away by how huge the space was. She thanked him, beaming, and promised to make him some medicine. Isaac enjoyed watching how happy she was. He told her the tour was over and to just call for the servants if she needed anything. Lily watched him walk away, and she really wanted to say something. Finally, she decided to talk to Crown Prince Isaac after all. She hurried over to him and asked what he was planning. Lily admitted she saw his mood change after reading that letter. She hoped she could help him, as his ally. The man gazed thoughtfully at the enthusiastic girl. He turned away and told her she shouldn't get involved in his business. His words stung because she just wanted to help. She started mixing the potion and realized he might not want to be friends with her. The girl looked at her reflection and reminded herself that she wasn't a princess anymore. She grabbed the knife and kept saying they only took her because of her blood. Lily figured she'd just leave him be and give him what he wanted. After that, she planned to use him to get what she wanted. Karen interrupted her thoughts, asking what smelled so freaking delicious. Lily immediately snapped at him when he started chugging the potion. She told him it was a test batch, but the room instantly lit up like a Christmas tree. Next thing she knew, a tan, shirtless dude was standing right in front of her. Even though it proved the potion worked, she still felt incredibly awkward. Her scream immediately summoned Catherine, who brought some clothes. Karen felt guilty for scaring Lady Lily like that. It's been a long time since he was last human. Lily figured that having her blood in the potion had something to do with it. She warned him he only had half a day before he turned into a crow again. Karen asked if he could stay in human form longer, using different ingredients. Lily agreed it was possible, but they'd have to test it out. She knew those kinds of rare items would be hard to get a hold of. Karen squeezed her hands and suggested they hit the market together. He practically begged with his eyes, forcing her to agree. Before she knew it, he grabbed her hand and started pulling her along. She tried to remind him she was wanted and could get arrested. Still, he just smiled and asked her to trust him. He winked playfully, promising she'd be all right. Eventually, he dressed her up in a costume from his tribe, the Fa'ala. He laughed and said she was wearing his clothes now. She couldn't help but imagine what that spy would look like in women's clothes. After that, they hurried to visit a shop selling magical supplies. A girl greeted them at the door, one who seemed to know Karen. He immediately told her to keep it quiet and added that the rules were the same. The girl thoughtfully looked at his companion and drew her own conclusions. She waved and said she could keep everything secret. Karen explained that they knew each other because Isaac was a regular here. The owner of this shop had a real knack for finding hidden gems. She was about to get a serious confirmation of that when they brought in the box. Inside was genuine mermaid scale, which was a potent ingredient for potions. Karen reached into his pocket, saying he'd get his hands on it. He pulled out a whole sack of gold, showing they had plenty of cash. Just then, Bella walked into the shop, also needing the scale. Lily instantly felt a wave of fear seeing her sister. She froze, trying to hide her face from the girl. The girl pulled her shawl tighter, like she wanted to disappear. Bella was eyeing her like a predator sizing up its prey. She wanted to know how a simple maid from Faal could afford stuff like this. Bella snatched the vial of scales right out of her hands. She smirked and guessed she was cooking up some love potion. The girl brazenly held out the vial and said she was going to buy it. The shopkeeper explained that someone else already bought the scales. Bella sneered that the Fail tribe were just poor folks who didn't even have a country. She held out a coin and said she'd pay double what they did. Karen muttered to Lily that he was itching to rearrange her face. Lily started shaking and whispered that she was making a special kind of elixir. Looks like Karen's clueless about what this elixir is and why she's so scared of it. The girl repeated that these ingredients are used to make it. It forces the victim to lose their mind and become a puppet, obeying someone else's orders. Lily guessed that she was brewing this potion for her dad. She decided to defy her sister and grabbed the vial. The girl secretly scattered its contents, aiming right for her back. Bella immediately spun around, outraged, and demanded to know what she was doing. The girl smirked and said she was gifting her some rain moth scale powder for stealing her stuff. She added that it can cause a nasty rash if it gets on your skin. Bella felt an intense itch and immediately started calling the girl names. Before she knew it, Karen had a knife to her throat, telling her he didn't give a damn who she was. He explained she'd disrespected him according to the rules of his Fael clan. The girl felt a surge of fear when he said he could end her right there. The shopkeeper chimed in, saying she better apologize to their esteemed guest, and fast. Karen smirked and said he didn't mean to cause any trouble. He ordered her to get on her knees and apologize to his sister. Bella was internally raging at him for daring to pull this crap. She knew she could unleash some dark magic and burn this whole place to the ground. She remembered that the owner, Isis, knew what family she came from. It bothered her how much respect Isis showed to members of that tribe. She knew she shouldn't be causing her family any trouble. Bella swallowed her pride and got down on her knees in front of the girl. Every word was a struggle, but she managed to apologize. Karen repeated all her insults and she took every single one of them. Lily calmly replied that she wouldn't take her words to heart. She reached out her hand to the humiliated witch. The girl demanded that her mermaid scales be returned to her. Bella reluctantly handed her the vial, not uttering a single word in response. She also requested that all the materials Bella mentioned be sent to her castle. She ordered Isis that from now on, that shop shouldn't sell her so much as a leaf. Isis agreed politely right away and decided to head to the warehouse. Lily shot her sister a triumphant look, promising herself this was only the beginning. She announced they were done with business, after which Karen dismissed Bella. The witch fell to the floor in disgrace after he shoved her. She told herself to endure it, vowing to make them pay for this humiliation. Bella watched her tormentors walk away, wishing she could obliterate them. She took a closer look at the girl's gestures, which were painfully familiar. She recognized Lily, who was always praised for her elegance. Meanwhile, Richard was off having a good time with some other ladies. His fun lasted until Bella showed up. She ripped the bandage off him, eyes blazing. He immediately snapped, saying he told her not to come see him without asking. Bella burst into tears and apologized, but he just kept tearing into her. She explained that her messed-up face was her sister's doing. Richard was taken aback, remembering her saying Lily ran off using dark magic. She told him how she ran into a girl at the market who felt strangely familiar. Bella added that she'd hooked up with some barbarian from the tribe. Richard instantly remembered how she played hard to get and wouldn't even let him kiss her. Bella kept crying, talking about how much crap she'd had to put up with. She decided to drag Richard into it, saying they hadn't spared even him. Bella straight up lied, saying people think he's a flake, a moron, and a total egomaniac. She twisted the knife, saying he couldn't hold a candle to Isaac. Meanwhile, Karen was cracking up at Bella's swollen face, the nasty piece of work. He was loving it, saying there's nothing sweeter than getting even. Lily was stoked at how much the shop owner helped them out. Raven replied that Isis is the most capable woman in his clan, and she wouldn't let her people be disrespected. He also added that she wanted to pay them back for their kindness. Lily kept listening to him until she spotted Isaac himself. He was standing in the middle of the main hall, completely alone. He checked the time and asked if they enjoyed the old streets. Looks like he wasn't too thrilled about them getting back so late. After a quick chat, Lily headed to her bedroom. She sighed, feeling the brush glide through her hair. She sadly confessed to the maid that she'd gotten on Isaac's bad side. Lily explained why they went to town, but he just gave her the cold shoulder. She even begged for forgiveness, but it was no use. All he said was that she wasn't allowed to leave the castle without his say-so from now on. It ticked her off that he was trying to put any kind of leash on her. Catherine smiled and said he was just worried about her. Seemed like Lily wasn't used to hearing something like that. The maid said he came back to the palace holding a bouquet. He searched the whole damn castle before finally asking Catherine about it. He seemed relieved when he found out Karen went with her. Then, he just stood there in the castle hall, waiting for them to get back. He kept checking his pocket watch, like every 5 seconds. Isaac was worried she was still having a tough time dealing with her mom's passing. Catherine showed her the bouquet and said he just has a hard time expressing his feelings with words. I guess her explanation kind of flipped the whole script on this situation. Lily stared thoughtfully at the lilies he'd picked for her. After a while, she decided to go find him and say thanks. All he did was take out his anger during training. She pointed out how late he was working out. She smoothly walked up behind him and asked what was bothering him. He just coldly reminded her that he told her to stay out of his business. He glanced at her and said he'd take her back to her room. She decided to ask him straight up if he was afraid of losing everything he had. He froze, not understanding why she'd jumped to that conclusion. Lily just confidently said that his reaction proved it. She got closer to him and said she knew the rumors about the Stewart family. It was obvious his nephew Richard was hungry for the throne. He wanted to use the Rowland family to consolidate his power. Lily was certain that whoever cast the curse wanted to disgrace him and strip him of his authority. She suggested he consider who among his inner circle would benefit the most from this. Before she could finish, he stepped right up to her. Lily got flustered and said she shouldn't be meddling in his family affairs. Isaac replied that even though she was smart, he needed to think everything through carefully. They walked on, discussing how his brother would soon be holding a family dinner at the palace. He knew that his absence would make it look like he wasn't interested in politics. Isaac was sure that in that case, he'd be ousted as crown prince. Lily was surprised when he said it would happen on the night of the blood moon. She brought up how there are tons of rumors about him because he lives like a total hermit. The guy just smirked and said this whole shindig was thrown just for him. Lily knew that Blood Moon was going to trigger his monster transformation. Isaac said he had to be there and asked her to whip up a potion for him. Lily smiled and promised everything would be all right. He smiled back and said he was really counting on her help. Out of the blue, Isaac realized he needed a dance partner and asked her to go with him. The girl was flustered by the offer, but she couldn't say no. Her bright smile faded when she remembered Richard would be there too. He suddenly said they were going to give her a new name and a whole new look. He called her Princess Lilith of ancient Leonia and asked her to play the part of his bride. Lily immediately blushed at the guy's smooth move. 3 days later, Isis was casually strolling through the market. She kept her cool until she heard screams about a fire. The girl found that her whole village, including the shop, was up in flames. Meanwhile, Richard was wearily waiting for news from his servant. The mercenary bowed and said he'd taken care of things, just like he was told. Richard asked where the person was they were supposed to find. He held out a box and said she was hiding in the shop owned by that Fala tribesman. Richard thoughtfully opened the box, waiting for confirmation that she was gone. Inside, there was a hair burnt to a crisp and an emerald necklace. Meanwhile, Isis was just talking to Lily. The girl predicted the arson and managed to prepare a fake body. Isis thanked her for managing to take away the valuables so that they wouldn't be looking for her anymore. Lily smiled and thanked her for the cooperation in return. Isis decided to discuss the fact that Prince Richard had started the fire. She could hardly believe he'd stoop to something like that. Lily immediately explained that the redhead was his special friend. She apologized for the mess, knowing how many people got hurt. Isis told her not to apologize and added that she didn't regret her help. She sized up the girl and said you shouldn't play dead when you see a wild animal. Isis got fired up, saying you gotta either run or fight. Lily gave the shopkeeper a good look and promised she'd remember her advice. She stood up and asked him not to call her Lady Roland. The girl ordered him to consider the Duke Roland's daughter dead, lost in the old market fire. After that conversation, the girl decided to go for a walk. Looks like everything that's happened lately is really weighing her down. She snapped out of it when she heard a familiar voice next to her. Isaac just came right out and asked her what was bumming her out. Even though their operation went off without a hitch, she still felt a little messed up about it. The guy looked her dead in the eye and asked if she was really blaming herself for those deaths. Lily didn't say a word, but you could see it all over her face. He told her the store burned down because their relatives are just plain nasty pieces of work. The girl paused, then declared she wasn't taking the blame for it anymore. She flat out regretted not finishing Bella off that day. Isaac smirked and said he was seeing more and more thirst for revenge in her eyes. He said Karen wouldn't have been able to do a damn thing to Bella in that situation. He held out a blade to her and told her to take care of it herself. The girl decisively drew the sharp blade and stared down at it. She immediately saw the reflection of her bright blue eyes. Lily was getting ready for the banquet and asked what she needed to learn. Isaac told her she used to be highly respected in ancient Leonia. He said all the generals and officials in that country were women. The guy snatched her knife real quick, pinned her, and said he won again. The girl looked at teasing Isaac, embarrassed. He added that, besides fencing, she should learn how to ride a horse. She had to master etiquette and the fine arts. The nobles of Leonia, who revered the queen, valued all those skills. Isaac also made sure his seamstress was making a dress for her. The old woman carefully took Lily's measurements. The guy really dedicated himself to schooling the young woman. She had 1 month to master their language and history. In Leonia, there was a clan favored by the gods. The royal women were born with powerful white magic in their bloodline. They could control the elements and cleanse corruption. They lived in peace for a long time, but change crept in unnoticed. Soon, people wanting to overthrow the queen decided to summon a demon. Heretics who gained power by worshipping the devil called themselves witches. They traded good deeds for the power of curses. Eventually, they angered the gods and brought down divine punishment. Soon the land started crumbling, and fiery rain plunged the kingdom into chaos. From then on, witches were seen as treacherous creatures, and they were exiled and burned. Lily remembered that this volcanic eruption happened the year she was born. She asked what happened to the Leonia royal family. Isaac replied that they loved their land and people more than anything. They came to see a martyr's death as an honor. They fought the disasters to the very end, and were then buried at the bottom of the sea. Rumor has it, a descendant of Leonia escaped to the Crescent Kingdom. For a while, Isaac searched for her, interested in her power. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't find a trace of her. Lily said she understood their powers and would try to break his lunar crown curse. The proof would be that he wouldn't transform into a monster under the blood moon. Her idea was that whoever cursed him would think she'd actually lifted it. Lily was certain that the person responsible would definitely make a second move. Isaac saw the worry in her eyes and told her it wasn't too late to back out. Still, Lily was ready to stick with him until the very end. She smiled and said that he needed her. She also added that he couldn't handle this on his own. Lily told him not to worry and said all she had left to do was learn the language. From that moment on, the girl diligently studied the ancient language of Leonia. She'd spend hours locked away in that study, just buried in books. Sometimes she'd even fall asleep right on top of him, studying so late. Isaac would catch her like that sometimes and tuck her in, real gentle. Even in her sleep, she'd mutter about working hard, not letting her family down. Isaac admired her drive. But this hidden sadness she had kinda worried him. All he could do was carefully carry her to her room, without saying a word. I think he even enjoyed carrying her down that long hallway, you know? He'd lay her down on the bed so gently, like she was made of glass. He wanted to leave the room, but something just froze him in place. Isaac suddenly felt his head swim and his heart started pounding like crazy. He was breathing so loud and heavy, it even woke Lily up. She was surprised to see sweat pouring down his face. Isaac tried to keep it together and apologized. The girl realized what was happening and squeezed his hand, worried. She asked him straight up if the curse was hurting him again. He pulled her close when she said to use her blood. Isaac froze above her, feeling the urge taking over. He took a slow, deliberate breath of her soft hand, like he was savoring the moment. The second he imagined the taste, his fangs grew longer. The next thing she knew, he had her pinned to the bed. But she didn't fight back. That detached look of his could scare anyone, but she stayed silent. Lily shivered as his clawed hand reached for her delicate neck. She'd never seen anything like it, never seen him like this before. The second she felt his breath on her, she begged him not to do it. Isaac wasn't about to stop, and he leaned in, fangs bared at her neck. He wanted to sink his teeth into her, but at the last second, he realized what he was doing. He couldn't let himself hurt Lily, and he recoiled instantly. Isaac clutched his head, repeating that this wasn't right. Lily watched anxiously as he fought whatever was going on inside him. The guy clenched his jaw and snapped, telling her not to look at him like that. He steeled himself and bolted out of her room like a shot. Catherine looked at her agitated master with a curious glint in her eyes. Every one of his episodes cut her deep. Meanwhile, Lily finished brewing the potion and left her room. She stepped out onto the balcony and saw the ominous glow of the red moon. The girl knew what this meant and decided to kick things into high gear. The next thing she saw, Isaac was barely holding it together, fighting his transformation with everything he had. Lily had only read about this stuff in books, but now she was seeing it for real. Isaac's whole body was racked with unbearable pain from the curse. Catherine begged her to help, saying he'd never been in so much agony before. Isaac saw things differently and told Lily to scram if she valued her life. Lily knew he didn't mean it that way, but it still messed with her head. She stepped closer and said he could just take the potion if he didn't want to see her around. But all he did was chuck the flask away and told her to get lost. The girl scolded him, comparing him to a spoiled brat. She decided to switch tactics and poured the potion right into her own mouth. In the next instant, she kissed him, giving him no time to think. She held him close until she was sure he'd swallowed everything. The second he swallowed the potion, his ears vanished instantly. The man collapsed, completely drained, right on top of his beautiful savior. Lily needed to remember that he'd crashed out right after drinking the potion. Catherine watched her sleeping master with a thoughtful look. 3 days later, Lily got back to brewing the potion. Catherine happily announced that her dress for the banquet was ready. Lily was surprised and replied that her potion wasn't finished yet. The maid grabbed her hand and told her to finish it later. She smiled and said that Isaac had a surprise waiting for her. Lily blushed, hearing that he actually had something planned. She hadn't seen him for 3 days since they kissed. The girl hurried to get to the crown prince's room. He casually mentioned her dress was ready and suggested she try it on. She thanked him, a little flustered, and hurried to take a look. She gazed thoughtfully at the small golden box. The second she opened it, she spotted a gorgeous necklace. She started to say something, surprised, but he was already gone. He already knew what she was thinking about those emeralds. Truth was, it was her mother's necklace, just updated. Before staging the body in the fire, he swapped it with a fake. Lily said to use the real deal, but he wasn't about to do that. He just couldn't shake the feeling that this heirloom was too important to just toss away. He said as a last thing that he'd understand if she was mad at him. He definitely wasn't expecting her to jump him with a grateful hug. She started thanking him because she thought she'd never see him again. She flashed a bright smile and said she was going to go try on the dress. Lily wiped away a tear and said he'd given her the best gift in the world. Isaac started seriously wondering if he'd actually been able to repay her. She helped him no matter what, accepting him for who he was. The guy involuntarily brought his fingers to his nose and realized they smelled like lilies. The big day arrived when they were supposed to attend the banquet. That stuck-up Marchioness Celine Gestia was there too. Everyone was stunned she actually showed up after all this time. They figured she only came because Crown Prince Isaac was going to be here. Richard was the first to hit on her, asking if she was looking for his chicken shit uncle. He grinned and guessed he was probably running around buck naked in the woods right now. Richard kissed her hand and asked her to open the ball with a dance. He was hoping to get in this strange lady's good graces, but she shut him down hard. The Marchioness said she wouldn't dance with someone who starts fires. Immediately, everyone started whispering about the fire at the old marketplace. The Marchioness just kept standing there looking bored after she embarrassed the prince. She gazed ahead thoughtfully and asked, "Who's that trashy social climber?" The Marchioness pointed at Bella, decked out in gaudy clothes and ridiculous jewelry. The prince said, looking embarrassed, that he'd never seen her before and had no idea who she was. Bella walked up to the Marchioness and introduced herself as the Duke Roland's eldest daughter. She mentioned that after Lily's passing, her father fell ill and entrusted her with managing everything. She approached the prince and said she would replace her sister and become a worthy bride. Everyone froze when they announced the arrival of Isaac Stewart. They expected to see some kind of wild animal, but instead saw an elegant man. Marchioness Celine Gestia beamed, preparing to greet Prince Isaac. He shocked everyone by showing up with a noble lady at his side. The nobles expected him to have lost it, but what they saw suggested otherwise. The banquet guests immediately started buzzing about how gorgeous his date was. Isaac introduced her as the princess of the ancient kingdom of Leonia. He called her his precious bride-to-be, and she gave a polite bow. The guy impressed everyone, not so much with his wealth, but with the fact that he actually had a fiancé. The prince immediately commented on the princess's refined grace. Bella just scoffed at her act, saying there were plenty more like her where she came from. Richard sized her up and asked why she'd say something like that. The witch leaned in close and whispered something with a smirk. Richard grinned and said he was looking forward to seeing the fireworks. Meanwhile, Celine Gestia still couldn't take her eyes off Lilith. She approached the princess thoughtfully, like she was running a scan to see if she was the real deal. Figuring she'd break the ice, the girl mentioned the crown prince talked about her a lot. The Marchioness gave her a once-over, real critical-like, and asked if Isaac had mentioned her. The princess smiled, saying she'd heard they grew up together. Celine tilted the princess's chin up with her fan, giving her a real nasty look. She called her a princess from who knows where, someone Isaac never breathed a word about. The crown prince jumped in quick, ordering her not to be rude to his fiancé. Celine scoffed, all shocked that she was his fiancé. Richard decided to ask Isaac how he ended up wandering into the palace. He touched the lady's chin and guessed it was a bad influence named Lily that brought him here. The girl shook off his hand right away and told him to get lost. She said she wouldn't take this kind of disrespect, like some princess from the ancient kingdom of Leonia. Bella brought up the goddess's family history and asked how she could be the wife of a cursed prince. Lilith was about to answer, but Isaac gently touched her hand. He said he brought her here to put all these rumors to rest. After he said that, Lilith grabbed Bella's face in a flash. She pressed both hands to her temples, like she was trying to mess with her head. The girl started chanting a spell in an ancient language. The Marchioness recognized it as a prayer spell to the goddess. As soon as she finished, Bella's tiara turned into a flowery headband. Lilith said Bella was dressed up like a Christmas tree and needed to tone it down with the accessories. The aristocrats laughed, thinking Bella looked like a total joke. Isaac calmly got everyone's attention and said that was the power of the goddess Leonia. He added that she could heal any wound and cleanse any corruption. He gazed lovingly at his bride and said she had the power to save everyone. Bella kept doubting herself, saying it was impossible, which got her some serious side-eye from the others. Turns out they were using Catherine's potion to create a phantom for 3 hours. He asked if she was worried about Bella finding out. The girl smirked and said she'd be ditching her crown real soon. Meanwhile, Prince Richard said she'd embarrassed him and told her to stay away. Bella was burning with rage and ripped the crown right off her head. Just like Lilith predicted, she threw that thing as hard as she could. After that, she bolted, feeling like she'd completely lost. Lilith said she'd go talk to her while she was alone. Isaac agreed and told her to be careful. The princess's sudden exit piqued Richard's interest. He smiled softly, feeling drawn to Lilith's bride. Meanwhile, Bella was consumed by fury and public humiliation. In her mind, she was calling Richard a good-for-nothing idiot. Bella clawed at her nails until they bled, thinking about how no one would treat her this way if she were from a different class. She gritted her teeth and vowed they'd all learn what she was capable of one day. The girl turned around when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Standing there, staring right at her, was Princess Leonie herself, Lilith. The girl tried to hide her surprise at seeing Bella. The witch just gave her a condescending once-over in response. She recoiled and demanded what she was doing, as Lilith moved closer. The princess gently took her hand and looked at her bloody fingers. She immediately pulled out a bandage to give Bella first aid. Bella was stunned by her flawless, precise movements. Lilith smiled and promised that everything would be all right. The witch was floored that this high and mighty goddess made her look like a fool, then showed her mercy. Lilith said the bad blood between their ancestors was ancient history. Bella was taken aback when she said they had a lot in common. Lilith brought up how back in the day, witches were a joke. And on top of that, nobles saw the goddess as just some fancy decoration. That's what made them alike. They were both hurting. Lilith stared right through her and said they were both treated like dirt. Bella was surprised when she asked if she wanted Prince Richard to pay the price. Lilith decided to play on the witch's anger and flashed a small bag. She pulled it from Bella's sleeve and ID'd it as a puppet potion. The witch felt a surge of anger and snapped her fingers instantly. She wasn't about to get caught and decided to wipe out any evidence. The girl smirked triumphantly, saying she had no idea what the witch was talking about. Lilith shot the girl a displeased look, not saying a word. She told her not to get so worked up and that she didn't have any proof. Bella eyed her opponent warily once again. Lilith secretly rejoiced, remembering that she'd bandaged her fingers and detected the potion. She said she'd come here after getting permission from the crown prince. The princess let her know that the prince was still waiting for her and left. She immediately headed towards the hall, realizing she'd just set the bait. Right then, she could feel this killer vibe radiating off Bella. She clenched her dress, knowing she had to save her dad, like now. Before she could even step forward, someone grabbed her. This guy clamped onto the princess's waist faster than lightning and yanked her close. Lilith glanced back and saw Prince Richard's smarmy grin. She instantly gave him the stink eye and told him to keep it decent. Seemed like her words just amused him, and he kept pushing it. He gripped her shoulders and said it was impossible to behave himself around such beauty. Lilith wasted no time. She jabbed him in the ribs, trying to break free. Prince Richard rubbed his ribs, wincing, and she bolted. She was booking it out of there, which just cracked him up. He checked her out and said it wasn't going to be that easy. Lilith stopped dead, taking in her surroundings. Looked like a dead end. It hit her. She'd totally lost her way in the palace. Bummer. The prince strolled up and said he'd make her his, one way or another. He tightened his glove and declared he was dead set on winning her over. There were whispers around the palace about a certain potion, one that could really bind someone. Just a few drops on the skin, and the power of Florandi could take hold. The prince smirked and admitted he'd used it when he grabbed her. He'd subtly spilled a couple of orange drops on her neck. Prince Richard strode triumphantly towards the massive door and threw it open. He didn't give a damn whether it resisted or not. He stepped inside and drawled, asking where his little kitty was. Richard was so damn sure he'd won. The grin wouldn't leave his face. Finally, he looked ahead and spotted the curtains rustling. He felt like a predator when he saw shoes peeking out from behind them. Richard slowly approached the curtain and reached out to touch it. He was about to pounce on Lilith, but a woman suddenly stopped him. Richard glared at Lady Shia, who was interfering with him again. The girl said this was the living room, not his personal playground. Richard called her just some court lady sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. Lady Shia explained she needed to get the room ready for the queen's arrival. Richard didn't argue, just glanced back, ready to bail. He yanked the curtain and ordered them to keep any shady characters out of the queen's parlor. The guy expected to find Lilith, but all he saw were her shoes. He immediately asked, totally bummed, where the heck did she run off to? Shia asked if they were putting on some kind of show. She added they should leave, but he snapped at her to shut her trap. After that, he slowly left the room, saying he'd made a mistake. Lady Shia froze in place, waiting for him to clear out. She looked around and said she was lucky he hadn't spotted her. She was staring right at Lilith, armed and hiding on the other side. Shia asked her who taught her how to neutralize Flarati poison. Lilith curtly replied that she got the knowledge from her mother. Shia said she was smart to use the shoe as bait. She figured Richard might have offed her if she hadn't shown up when she did. Lilith glanced at the lady and asked why she was helping her. Shia just stepped back and said it wasn't the first time Richard had pulled something like this. The girl was surprised to hear he'd already messed with 5 others. Flarati poison was banned, which made her think the prince had some shady connections. Lady Shia said guys like him are a disgrace to the royal family. Lilith asked why she wasn't punishing him for all this crap. The woman just replied that she's just a lady, and he's being protected. Lilith frowned, hearing that the prince was getting a pass from the king. Lady Shia told her not to sweat it and just get out of here. She held out a cloak and promised that nobody would ever know this happened. Lilith pulled on the cloak and said she wouldn't forget her help. She went to leave the room, but Shia rushed to stop her. Shia remembered that the blood spilled still carries some of Flarati's poison. She wanted to know what she'd do with the vial, but Lilith stayed silent. This girl knew Richard wouldn't quit until he got what he wanted. She was dead certain he'd take it out on Bella the witch. He grabbed her tight and magically ordered her to bring Lilith to his bedroom. The prince threatened her, saying he'd go to the queen with this vial. He promised to tell everyone his crazy behavior was all the witch's idea. Bella tried to calm him down, forcing a sweet smile. She asked if her precious prince was really threatening her. Richard sneered, saying he wouldn't have gotten the potion without her. He squeezed her chin and threatened to expose her as the reason for his actions. The girl gripped his hand, asking how he could do this to her. She gave him those puppy dog eyes and said she was doing it all for him. Before she could even finish, he smacked her hard across the face. He ordered her to keep pleasing him and bring Lilith here. He hit her so hard, Bella went down like a sack of potatoes. He kept barking orders at the witch, pissed that she wasn't saying anything. Looks like Richard finally crossed a line and pushed her too far after all this time. The prince suddenly realized he was completely paralyzed. Bella got back on her feet, gave a twisted smile, and repeated his own words back to him. Richard felt a jolt of pain through his whole body as she asked if she was just his plaything. She smirked and told him not to remind her of something she'd figured out a long time ago. The girl unleashed a beam of light, saying things were about to change. She touched Richard's forehead, telling him he was her plaything now. The second she did, his mind just shut down. Bella decided to test the potion, ordering him to hand over the vial. Using magic, she raised the vial up and aimed a beam at it. In the blink of an eye, the vial shattered, destroying all the evidence. She smirked, asking why he'd want to use her while looking down on her. Bella said she'd fix him, took off her shoe, and extended her foot towards him. She smiled victoriously, expecting the prince to serve her blindly. The girl froze when she caught a glimpse of clothing in the doorway. She immediately rushed forward to check out the hallway. Even though nobody was around, she still felt like she was being watched. She was pissed off at the darkness because she couldn't see a damn thing. Still, she felt better knowing the evidence was gone. She remembered Richard, who was completely under her control. The girl froze, shocked to see him holding a candlestick. He kept crawling on his knees, enjoying the sweet scent of the potion. Bella couldn't figure out who left a candle with Flarati essence here. She realized it had been burning for a while, and she hadn't seen anyone's hand. In a flash, she felt Richard grab her, locking her in his arms. Like he was hypnotized, he kept inhaling the witch's scent. She tried to make him stop, but he just kept going. The prince said he was drawn to her hair and her burning hot skin. Bella knew it was a trap, but her mind was starting to cloud over too. She felt her body melting from Richard's feverish kisses. The girl smiled with pleasure, wanting to return the favor. They continued to give each other passionate affection, fueled by the enchantment. They kissed for so long, they even forgot about everyone around them. Meanwhile, Lilith returned to the main banquet hall. One of the ladies asked her where she'd been for so long. The princess smiled and said she'd been admiring the moon from the balcony. She added that there was supposed to be a meteor shower tonight. Everyone around immediately jumped on board, eager to see the natural phenomenon. The aristocrats unanimously decided to head out to the balcony. Only Isaac could guess that this was all part of Lilith's plan. The girl smirked and gave her fiancé a meaningful look. Meanwhile, the aristocrats walked in on Bella and Richard getting very friendly. One of the ladies immediately called them out, asking how they could be so shameless. The lovebirds looked up and saw they had an audience. Bella's dress was pulled up all messy, and her hair was a wreck. Looks like that shock was the only thing that snapped them out of it. They started making excuses right before Lilith showed up. She gave them this look, like she knew exactly what was up. Bella kept pulling up her dress, saying they had it all wrong. Richard shoved Bella away and said she'd used some kind of love potion. The witch asked him, all bummed out, why he'd say something like that. Everyone immediately started talking about the prince's already trash reputation. People were convinced he was the one who caused all this mess. He yelled at them, threatening to have the palace guard arrest them all. Lilith smirked and told him to get a grip on his temper. The prince got even angrier and demanded to know how she dared order him around. He was about to keep unloading on her when he heard a familiar voice. Standing before him was the queen, dressed to the nines, just as everyone expected. Elena Carter sized him up with a cold, unforgiving stare. Richard got spooked, realizing how precarious his situation had become. The queen laid into him, saying he was bringing more and more shame to his father's name. The prince threw himself at her feet, begging for her forgiveness. He tried once again to accuse Bella of using witchcraft. Bella shot him down, saying she never intended to harm her fiancé. Shia said they should both be sent up for judgment before the Holy See. The queen agreed and decided to stop embarrassing their guests. Out of nowhere, Lilith announced that Bella really had been using banned potions. She held out a tiny vial as proof. Bella protested, saying she was talking garbage. The witch knew Lilith had set her up, but she was sure the vial was destroyed. Lady Shia examined the vial and confirmed it was a forbidden potion. Lilith added that she checked the vial's number and found it went missing from the stockroom after Bella's visit. She stated that this didn't involve the prince, since she had a pass. The princess concluded that it didn't matter who was the main offender and who was just helping out. Their sins were equally serious because they were messing with those girls. Lilith bowed low, begging the queen for justice. She pleaded for the removal of the source of such depraved behavior. Shia backed her up, saying the queen had given him way too many chances already. The queen didn't say a word, just signaled to the guards. They rushed to restrain Prince Richard, grabbing him by the arms. He struggled, staring Lilith right in the face. Richard declared he was a prince and entitled to enjoy everything the palace had to offer. The princess shot back, saying a nobleman's duty is to set an example, not abuse his power. Bella was watching the girl closely and noticed something. She remembered hearing that exact phrase from her sister when she was a kid. Lily ran her mouth about that saying one too many times, and that's what screwed her over. Bella kept staring at her face, like she was searching for an answer. She smirked, mentally pitying Lily for still being alive. She accepted her loss, figuring she screwed up choosing dumbass Richard over Isaac. Bella got pissed, deciding Lily wouldn't always be so lucky. Looks like her power was starting to take over, wanting to tear this place apart. She glared at Richard, forcing him to obey her will. Giving in to the crazy urge, the prince broke free from the guards. He rushed back towards Princess Lilith. Bella grinned, knowing he'd managed to snatch a knife from a guard. Lilith didn't even have time to react before the sword came swinging down. She froze, not believing she'd meet her end so damn fast. The girl squeezed her eyes shut. Then Richard's sword was stopped cold by another. Looks like the prince couldn't handle that power, 'cause his sword just shattered. Isaac rushed in to shield his princess, who was in deep trouble. He ordered him to stay the hell away from her and punched him right in the gut. Richard was still being controlled and scrambled back to his feet. You could tell by that glazed-over, lost look in his eyes. Lilith snapped out of it when she heard her sister chanting a spell. She turned to Isaac and told him not to let her finish that incantation. Lilith explained that Bella wants to off people to keep them quiet. Isaac bolted straight for his nephew and knocked him out cold. He stared daggers at the witch, like he knew exactly what she was up to. The next second, he had his blade pointed right at her. The guy straight up asked her how she dared to take out the prince. He glared at her, full of hate, and said he could end her right then and there. Bella smirked and asked him what he was getting at. Lilith said that Richard's weird behavior looked like he was under some kind of mind control potion. She suggested checking out the shop where Bella gets her herbs and taking a look at her stock. Lilith smiled and said that would be an easy way to prove her point. Bella sized her up with a smirk and asked if she was her darling sister. The princess played dumb, saying they'd only just met today. Bella hung her head and said it didn't matter anymore. Everyone froze when the witch vanished into thin air. Lilith looked around and saw her standing high above the railing. Isaac rushed to pull her back, telling her to be careful. They watched as Bella's entire body began to glow with an ominous light. She glared at them and declared she wasn't hiding it anymore. Lady Shia hurried to warn the queen and take cover. Bella said it was too late. Magic and spells were just the beginning. She looked at her sister and called her mysterious Lady Lilith. The girl raised her hand and declared this palace would become the eye of the storm. Lilith tried to stop her, saying the church would turn a blind eye to incantations. Even so, she wouldn't be forgiven for using such powerful elemental magic. Despite everything she said, Bella was already unstoppable. She wasn't scared of the death penalty or any punishment, because she wanted to wipe everything out here. She smirked and said she was tired of seeing the stuck-up faces of the nobles. The girl added that no one would know what happened if everyone here died. Lilith remembered the ban on elemental magic existed, because mortals don't have the goddess's power. She realized Bella was gradually draining the life force from everyone. This was necessary to pull off that elemental miracle. Looks like Isaac spotted it too and rushed to shield her. The fierce wind left a cut on his face, without him even realizing it. Bella snatched his sword and said he deserved a special reward. She whirled the sword around with the wind, saying her sister's neck was next. Lilith froze, watching the raging elements. Looks like Isaac was the only one who could keep his cool. He shot to his feet and held his hands out in a weird gesture. The guy bit his finger and said he'd have to use his sword after all. Lilith was surprised when he started reciting the paladin's blessing. Looks like even the most powerful witch, Bella, was blown away by his skills. Isaac just smirked, all sly, saying they were dead right. Next thing you know, his whole body's blazing with bright flames, and he's got a sword in his hands. Turns out, he was the heir to a holy sword and a knight of fire. Bella remembered that knights were considered loyal allies of the goddess and the strongest warriors. Isaac asked, cool as ice, if she was getting scared. Bella raised her hands and said they hadn't been heard from since the fall of Leonia. She blasted him with a gust of wind, telling him he might be putting on an act. Isaac just held his sword out, ready to block the attack. A bright beam of fiery energy started building up in his sword. This power was surging from the sword he was going to use to take down Bella. He channeled the wind currents to deliver his energy blast. The next instant, the whole area exploded in blinding light. The energy radiating off him was so intense, Lilith almost got blown away. Isaac reacted instantly, pulling her into his arms to shield her. The girl felt a rush of embarrassment, mixed with a strange sense of trust. Isaac stroked her hair, telling her not to worry, that everything was going to be all right. All she could do was trust him, staring into his crimson eyes. Meanwhile, Bella was plummeting towards the ground after her defeat. She kept muttering about the Holy Knight's return, like she was under a spell. Isaac stepped right up to the railing, wanting a good look at his opponent. He shot her a look that could kill and declared it was all over. He ordered them to slap some chains on that witch and haul her off to the church dungeon. The queen agreed with his call and then turned her attention to Lilith. Isaac instantly grabbed her hand and shielded her with his body. She was a little flustered, but she definitely appreciated him having her back. The queen wanted to know why the Leonian heiress hadn't done anything when the witch was throwing down. The girl hung her head and said it was the Holy Knight's time to shine. She glanced up at him and said she trusted her fiancé. Lilith looked out at the nobles and brought up some weird rumors she'd been hearing. They were accusing Isaac of dabbling in the dark arts, saying he'd turned into some kind of monster. She winked, all playful, and said that those accusations were officially debunked. The queen stayed silent, seeing that everyone was backing the princess. Lady Shia said that, thanks to them, Bella's little scandal had been exposed. The queen gave in, realizing that too many people had seen everything. After a moment, the woman said her goodbyes, ordering Isaac to take care of his bride. Lilith bowed in response and thanked Shia for her help. The girl called it nothing and urged them to get out of there ASAP. She added that Isaac was causing the Stewart family a lot of anxiety. Shia put a cap on it, saying he was under even more suspicion than that weak little thing hiding behind the Leonia name. Isaac frowned, realizing their deception was obvious. Lilith saw his confusion and looked at the man. She steeled herself to ask if she'd done something wrong. She felt like an idiot for being completely clueless about politics. Isaac told her not to worry, saying she was just stressed out. Lilith blushed and said she wasn't nervous at all. The man just smiled back and said she was definitely worked up. He pointed out that she'd even used his first name for the first time. It seemed like she was just now realizing how familiar she'd gotten with him. After that conversation, they hurried back home. The moment had finally arrived for Lily to return to her normal self. For some reason, a tense silence hung between them. She saw Isaac's face darken and asked if he was all right. The guy immediately replied that he was just beat from today. Lily mentioned she'd brewed plenty of potion for him. The moment she showed concern, he told her to take care of herself. He leaned close, saying Bella might still have loyal followers out there. Lily just hugged him back and looked into his eyes. He softly asked if she really wanted to see her father. Feeling flustered by their closeness, she awkwardly looked away. She said her dad's in deep trouble because of some puppet potion curse. She got all dark all of a sudden and said she couldn't wait any longer. Isaac just watched her mood swing like it was no big deal. He suggested sticking to the plan, and then they pulled up to the estate. The girl decided to take back everything that was once hers. She threw a cloak over her shoulders and headed straight in. Isaac stepped out of the carriage, staring thoughtfully after her. He knew this whole operation could be seriously dangerous for Lily. He snapped his fingers, and Karen the Raven appeared in front of him. Isaac ordered him to follow her and protect her, no matter what went down. Raven wanted to know if he'd be all right after wielding the Holy Sword's power. Karen asked the guy if he needed any protection. Isaac didn't even acknowledge him, just calmly rolled down his sleeve. His face darkened when he saw the curse mark spreading further across his body. Meanwhile, Lily was already scaring the crap out of the guards and servants in the palace. A maid fell to the floor in terror, thinking she was seeing a real ghost. Everyone was convinced Lily was dead. They never expected to see her standing there. The girl commanded them to kneel before the dead, who had returned from hell. The maid collapsed, saying that Lady Bella had already left. Lily glanced around thoughtfully, as if searching for confirmation of her words. The fact that the place was deserted and all the Duke's guards were gone set off alarm bells for her. Right after that question, the maid just keeled over, passed out cold. Looks like her weird behavior just made Lily even more suspicious. She snapped her fingers and was surprised the maid got so sick just from a simple illusion trick. She decided to seize the opportunity and head down to the basement. It was going to be a long trek for the girl, all the way down those stairs. She couldn't help but remember how young the maid was the last time they met. Now, she looked at least 20 years older. Lily didn't even expect it to be this easy to get inside. Now, she had to find her sister Bella's underground lab. She was looking for antidote recipes for her potions, but all she found was some stranger in a robe. She ducked for cover, figuring he was one of Bella's goons. Lily wasn't totally sure who this guy was, but she wasn't taking any chances. Right away, she was worried she couldn't handle him on her own. She was going to wait for the right moment, but she accidentally knocked over a glass flask. The guy mixing the potion immediately turned around to see what the noise was. Lily wanted to bolt, but something just froze her in place. She couldn't believe her eyes when she saw that the guy was her father. Meanwhile, the maid kept crying, talking about another victim. The man tried to act all happy and asked if it really was his daughter. He wanted to pull her into his arms, but she slashed open his chest. As the fabric tore, she saw a dark mark underneath. It was a blood curse, the kind only black mages carry. She broke down, demanding he tell her exactly how her mother died. The man just grinned like a lunatic and asked what she was talking about. He started shaking and said it was all because of that witch, Bella. Lily instantly connected the potion smell to that old servant woman. She also noticed the weird wrapped-up flask. The girl realized with dread that it was a legit cursed urn. She couldn't believe her eyes when she saw a blonde hair inside. The girl's heart broke when she realized it was her mother's ashes. All the evidence pointed to the fact that he wasn't under the puppet potion. She realized her own father was making sacrifices for eternal life. Before she could finish her sentence, an unseen force yanked her back. Black bars wrapped around the girl, choking the air from her lungs. Her father controlled them, complaining that his body was slowly decaying. He held a bright crystal in his hand, saying he was forced to do all this. He smirked and said only demons could grant him a new lease on life. With those words, the black bars tightened around the girl's throat with renewed force. Lily tried to pull them away, but every second was a struggle. The guy said her mom was the first victim of this curse. He pinned his daughter to the floor, saying it was her turn now. Her dad held the crystal in his hand, then stroked her chin. The man felt the wrinkles on his face smoothing out, little by little. He said the more she fought, the more energy he got. Before he could finish the ritual, Karen knocked the crystal right out of his hand. The purple magic crystal shattered on the floor with a crash. The bird barely got off the ground before its whole body was locked up. The man said, all smug, that the curse affects everyone in this dungeon. He tightened his grip on his victims, feeding off their life force. Lily felt her body getting weaker with each passing second. The guy froze, totally shocked when Isaac appeared behind him. Looks like he finally let his monstrous side come out to play. Roland thought he was a monster at first, until he realized it was the prince. He didn't know it then, but his time was already up. Isaac said that in the name of the Stewart family, he was sentencing him to death. Lily opened her eyes and felt a surge of hope when she saw the guy. The second he went to attack her father, those black bars vanished. Lily knew her father was gone, but they didn't have a choice. She jumped up in a flash and saw a bloodied body lying nearby. Looks like she just couldn't accept that she was an orphan now. She saw this dude covered in blood and asked him what he was doing there. He wasn't the Isaac she knew before. The second he picked up Karen, it was like he was consumed by a curse. He squeezed that bird hard, remembering he ordered him to protect Lily at all costs. Lily saw where this was going and squeezed his hand, like she was begging him to stop. Isaac was flipping out, but her touch calmed him down for a sec. She started crying again, practically begging him not to hurt the poor guy. The girl held onto his hand, telling him that wasn't who he really was. As soon as she asked him not to do something he'd regret, he snapped out of it for a second. Their memories flashed through his curse-addled mind. He remembered wanting to see her sweet smile and working hard for her sake. Now, he noticed her beautiful face was twisted with sorrow. Looks like that snapped him out of it, and he managed to apologize. The guy melted down with rage and unleashed Karen. He calmly looked at his chosen one and told her not to cry. He gently ran his hand through her blonde hair and held her tight. Isaac breathed in her floral scent and said he didn't want to see her sad. After all that went down, he dreamed of forgotten childhood memories. That was the day he was first asked if he was ready to accept this heavy burden. The kid told his dad he was ready if it meant bringing peace. Then he dreamed again about holding his girl's soft hand. She looked at him with so much tenderness, you could practically read her feelings. The next second, he snapped his eyes open wide, like waking from a nightmare. He immediately saw the happy girl, tears streaming down her face. The guy looked around, totally confused, not even knowing how long he'd been out. Lily blushed when she saw the way he moved his hand. It was kinda weird. She still didn't know how she felt about him after everything that went down. She was torn between being hurt and the love she still had for him. Looks like Isaac didn't even get why she was acting so strange all of a sudden. He rubbed his forehead, lost in thought, trying to piece together everything from yesterday. He realized he'd been acting all casual around the girl whose father he'd offed. Isaac gripped the sheets, thinking he must be losing his damn mind. He squeezed his head, exhausted, and told himself that wasn't an excuse. For the first time, the man wondered if his desire for revenge for her and to be closer to her was the real reason behind all this. Still, he figured there was no way she'd ever open her heart to him again. He snapped back to reality when he heard Catherine's cheerful voice. The maid smiled and told him he'd been out cold for a whole week. She explained that his curse had flared up and drained a lot of his strength. She remembered how bloody he was when Karen and Lily brought him in. The guy immediately wanted to know if Karen was all right. Catherine seemed surprised by his concern, but she said he was safe and sound. Isaac didn't show it, but he was ashamed of how he acted yesterday. He smiled and, without even realizing it, thanked Lily. Catherine was surprised, then mentioned that Lily was currently arranging her father's funeral. Looks like the maid's words snapped him back to reality. The whole palace found out that Duke Roland performed some kind of dark ritual, so all the accusations against Lily were dropped. They also promised to restore her noble title soon. Hearing that, Isaac ordered his formal attire and scepter to be prepared. Meanwhile, Lily stared thoughtfully at her parents' coffins. She felt this emptiness in her heart, but couldn't even squeeze out a tear. The vultures were already circling, ready to tear that poor woman apart. Lily ignored them, deciding to say her final goodbyes to her parents. She hoped her father's soul would find redemption, and her mother would rest in peace. Shia announced that her father couldn't be buried in the nobles' cemetery. Lily knew that, but she still came to say farewell. On top of that, the queens ordered the Roland family's assets frozen until Lily accepts her title. The woman added that the church would be taking the Duke's body tomorrow. Lily broke down, then said she wanted to forget this messed up past. She bit her lip, full of disgust, and said she was cutting ties with her family. The girl knew what she wanted, but a familiar voice told her, "Not on my watch." Lily turned around and saw Isaac standing there, all dressed up. She wiped away her tears and rushed to ask him how he got here. She couldn't believe he'd decided to come to this place too. His touch made her uneasy. She was still replaying yesterday in her head. She looked at him, shocked. When he touched her with the scepter, out of nowhere, he pledged to give her a third of his lands across the river. The guy decided to do it as payback for her father's death, which he caused. Shay immediately confronted him, asking if he even knew what he was saying. Lily understood the situation and protested, saying that everyone was in the know. She tightened her coat and told him it wasn't his fault. She had to shut up when he put a finger to her lips. He smiled softly, looking into her eyes, and told her not to refuse. He didn't have much time to protect her and help get everything back. After that little ceremony, they hurried back. Lily tried to catch up to the guy to talk about what happened. She honestly admitted that she felt really awkward about what he'd said. She looked thoughtfully at Isaac and asked if something was bothering him. Looks like she managed to strike a chord deep down. He suddenly turned to face her and said she was very perceptive. Isaac pulled the girl close, thanking her for not rejecting his gift in front of everyone. Lily stated that she couldn't accept something so valuable. She started to add that she was just a heretic, but he demanded she shut up. Isaac stroked her face and said that this wasn't over, because she still belonged to him. He was about to finish, but a horrible pain suddenly shot through his entire body. He felt so bad that he even clenched his teeth from the sensation. Lily immediately screamed, demanding that someone come help. She felt his whole body go limp, and a mark spread across his skin. She told Catherine that he needed to be taken to the hottest room. Catherine was surprised when she heard that he also needed to be washed. So, the girls ended up stripping Isaac and carrying him to the bathroom. This was the first time Lily had seen the curse progress this fast. She had a bad feeling about this and decided to get all the medicine ready. The maid said she'd asked for too much, and they couldn't gather everything at once. Lily froze, then told her to hurry the servants up, ASAP. Eventually, she was left alone with Isaac. Because of the steam, she could feel the heat soaking into her own body. She decided to take off her outer layer, because she thought she was going to suffocate. She stroked Isaac and told him he had to hang in there. Lily definitely wasn't expecting him to wake up just from her saying that. Her face instantly flushed red under his intense gaze. Before she knew it, he grabbed her hand and pulled her down. Lily found herself submerged in the water, and then she felt a fiery kiss. She tried to pull away, but he only pulled her closer. The man held the soaked girl tightly in his arms, as if afraid to let her go. Her soft skin sparked a powerful urge. A primal hunger, let's say. She seemed to sense his intense feelings and asked about it. Isaac hesitated, like a wild predator, then quietly confirmed her suspicions. The next moment, he leaned in, ready to express his feelings. Lily was ready to let him, but he pulled away on his own. He said a monster like him shouldn't be asking her for anything more. Lily saw his turmoil and decided to support him. She explained that she'd completely lost her own father ever since he made a deal with the devil. Lily added with sadness in her voice that he was the only one she was afraid of losing. Isaac couldn't answer and decided to kiss her again. Lily was surprised, realizing this was a real kiss, not just a blood craving. She felt tender and sad at the same time, but her heart kept melting. They were lost in the moment until they heard the clinking of a beaker. The girl got spooked and immediately shoved her passionate admirer away. They froze like kids caught in the act and saw Catherine standing before them. The maid apologized right away for walking in on them like that. Lily blushed when she said they could, continue. She scrambled out of the pool, saying she'd go get the medicine herself. Lily bolted from the bathroom as fast as her legs could carry her. Catherine was taken aback, realizing she hadn't even asked what medicine it was. Meanwhile, Lily froze outside the locked door, trying to catch her breath. She felt like her mind had just completely gone blank. The girl sank to the floor, trying to figure out why he'd kissed her. She shyly squeezed her burning cheeks, wondering if he actually liked her. She quickly pushed those thoughts away, looking for the catch in all of this. She sized up his shifty emotions and sudden urges in a heartbeat. She also couldn't shake what went down in the basement when he totally lost it. All signs pointed to something seriously messed up going on with him. Meanwhile, Catherine thoughtfully picked up the matches. She carefully lit a candle and set it down on the tiled floor. The girl wrapped Isaac in a towel and asked him how he was feeling. He remembered the priest's words about the curse spreading like a countdown. He knew the final stage of the curse meant game over for him. After that, they both just stared at the floor, lost in thought. Catherine knew it was true, but she still wanted to give him some hope. She glanced at quiet Isaac and asked if Lily knew about it. He just curtly replied that she shouldn't know. Isaac figured she was only sticking around out of obligation and what she could get out of it. That's why he didn't want her taking on that kind of burden. Catherine explained that Lily wouldn't worry about him so much if he was just some guy. She leaned in close to his ear and whispered that it wasn't a burden. It was love. The girl smirked slyly and said that those were the most treacherous feelings for a woman. Isaac was so taken aback. You could see the fear in his eyes. He froze when Catherine asked if he had feelings for her. She reminded him how he was willing to sacrifice everything for her and give up his chance to break the curse. And with those words, Isaac drifted off to sleep, thanks to that candle. The maid gently laid him in her lap, like she was guarding his dreams. She smiled, pleased, looking down at the guy who was now in her grasp. Then she raised the candle and snuffed it out with a single breath. She said he'd fallen head over heels for Lily, just like his mother once did. Sadly, that love got her sentenced to, well, let's just say it didn't end well. A couple of minutes later, Lily strolled into the room. She was surprised to see Isaac gone and said she'd brought his medicine. Catherine told her he was totally wiped out, so he went to his room to crash. She said he was already asleep and asked if Lily wanted to leave a message. Lily was immediately stuck on how a guy could just pass out after a kiss. She looked up when the maid decided to drop some news on her. The maid, with a sly grin, announced that her revenge plot was over. She straight up lied, relaying Isaac's message that Lily was heading back to the Roland Duchy in 3 days. The girl could barely believe he decided to ship her off. Catherine smirked and said it was just a simple end to their arrangement. She added that it might even be good for her in the long run. With that, she locked the door, leaving Lily alone with her thoughts. She couldn't figure out how being separated from him was supposed to be a blessing. She kept running through the possibilities until the reason finally hit her. Lily froze, a sharp sense of danger washing over her. Isaac was in trouble. She hammered on his door immediately, demanding he let her in. The girl pounded her fists until she saw the magical sigils shimmering there. Looks like that sneaky maid made sure she couldn't get through. Lily looked at her hands, a flicker of fear in her eyes, and saw they were burned. She broke down, saying she just wanted to share this pain with Isaac. She didn't know Catherine had orchestrated all of this, making her think he was pulling away. Lily clenched her fists, a new resolve hardening her features. She wouldn't give up. She pictured his face, realizing with crystal clarity that she'd always loved him. Meanwhile, Isaac finally woke up from his deep slumber. He practically jumped out of his skin when he saw himself chained up. Catherine gave him a sweet smile and asked if he was hungry. He ordered her to release him, but she just blanked him. She put a plate on the table and said it was all for his own good. She asked if he was so blinded by his feelings that he'd forgotten the dangers out there. Catherine leaned in close to his face, like a stern mom. She reminded him that he'd even used the Holy Knight's power, which only sped up the curse. The girl sneered, adding that he'd completely lost sight of what he was supposed to be doing. She reminded him that Lily Roland was his last chance to fix things. Isaac couldn't take it anymore and told her to shut her mouth. Catherine said that, worst-case scenario, they'd have to make a human sacrifice. They both knew nobody fit the bill better than Lily. Her words pissed him off, making him try to break free from the cage. Catherine ordered him to give up, that there was no way he was breaking those chains. She also warned him he'd be toast if he didn't tap into the Holy Knight's power. Isaac snarled that he wouldn't let Lily sacrifice herself for him. He looked the maid in the eye and saw nothing but contempt. She smirked and said Lily would be back before he knew it. Catherine added with a sly grin that they'd soon see just how much she cared about him. She figured the girl would do anything to save his hide. It's like she knew Lily would head to the Crescent Kingdom's church. The girl met with Shia to attend the vigil. This was the very spot where her sister Bella was burned to ash. Seems like even Lily didn't realize how far she was willing to go. She stared at the scorched pillar that no one wanted to use anymore. Shia asked if she was really ready to perform the ritual for him. She added that she could offer a chance to speak with the spirits bound to this pillar. Shia said that one of the spirits might know how to break the curse. She warned that they might not answer, and she could end up just like them, a spirit herself. Shia looked at her traveling companion and didn't see a shred of doubt on her face. She agreed and asked me to perform the ritual for her. Shia sat the girl on her lap and recited the required prayer. With each new word, the pillar blazed even brighter with blue flame. Before she knew it, Lily found Isaac in his child form. It was like she was watching once thrilling events from a distance. That day, Isaac was standing, talking to his father, who was holding a girl. He introduced Catherine to his son and said she would now serve him. The boy looked in surprise at the one who was still just a kid. She looked at him with her clear gray eyes, as if giving an answer. Despite his childish mind, it was like he understood everything even then. He brushed it off, said he already had maids, but they explained her family was gone. Her father asked him to look after her, but he told the guy the same thing. He just walked away, saying he couldn't take care of her with all his stuff going on. From then on, he and Catherine grew up together. like master and servant. Catherine shyly apologized and tugged on his sleeve. She smiled and asked if she could call him Isaac. He was so captivated by her childish smile. He couldn't say no. He never even imagined that one day it would be replaced by treachery. He realized for the first time that she'd played on his weaknesses and turned him into a puppet. Isaac demanded to know exactly what she'd been telling Lily. Catherine smirked and said she should hit up a church if she wanted to meet her darling. She turned around all sly, adding that she'd perform the same ritual as his mother. Putting her soul on the line, she'd mingle with the world of the dead. She had to accept she might not make it back from that place. Isaac froze, sensing the absolute worst was about to happen. He was so furious and drained, he even tried to unleash his power. Catherine went rigid, feeling a bright golden flame lock her down. She reminded him that he could be speeding up his own demise. He just growled back that he could wipe her off the map any time he wanted. Isaac demanded she let him go and make damn sure Lily was safe. The curse started spreading through his body from using that power. The maid smirked, asking if he was seriously threatening her, using himself as a hostage. She pulled out a coin and said she'd already given orders to the guards in his name. Catherine had taken care of everything, leaving him no way out. She declared that if anything happened here, the Stuarts would wipe Roland off the map. The second he heard that, his magic power just vanished. He realized Catherine was a master at pulling all the strings. He sighed, exhausted, and asked why she was doing all this. The maid just gave a sly smile and asked if it was really that hard for him to figure out. She stroked his head and said she just wanted to show him how pathetic love really is. Catherine snuck up on him, telling him to remember how his mother died. Meanwhile, Lily had already cast the spirit summoning and was in the void. Her soul temporarily left her body and entered the wasteland of the sacred pillar. Countless spirits roamed here, including her family. Still, she had to resist any attempts to interfere with the ritual. She needed to find the Night Queen, who died 300 years ago. She was a descendant of witches and knew how to break the lunar curse. No sooner had Lily set foot on this land than forgotten souls attacked her. They wanted her to give them just a sliver of her life force. The girl thought she was done for, but then Isaac grabbed her hand. She couldn't believe her eyes, seeing him in a place like this. He looked at her and asked what she was doing here. Isaac pulled her into a tight hug and told her how long he'd been searching for her. Lily, surprised, reminded him of the things she'd heard from Catherine. He told her to forget what was said and added that he'd been waiting for her for so long. The girl asked if he'd been avoiding her because of the curse or something else. He smiled and replied that he wanted to be with her forever. Isaac reached for her lips, feeling her trust in him. The moment she felt his lips touch hers, she found herself in bed. She opened her eyes in surprise and saw the man in front of her. He pinned her to the bed, breathing in the scent of her long hair. Isaac begged her not to reject him and to remember how much he'd missed her. She pulled away, saying shyly that now wasn't the right time. Even so, he kept trying to win her over with his eyes. Every new kiss sent shivers down her spine. He asked if she would agree to be his when the time was right. Lily repeated his question, like she sensed something was off. Isaac gave a sly smile and said he only wanted her. The next moment, he turned dark, demanding she belong only to him in a terrifying way. At first, Lily didn't realize she'd been tricked and kept looking at him. She was so mesmerized, she almost promised him everything. He was pressuring her hard, demanding she say she'd be his. Before she could answer, his image shattered because of the prayer. The mask fell away, and he finally revealed his true form to her. The girl clutched her chest in disgust and commanded the evil spirit to back off. The spirit realized the priestess had managed to plant a trap like that in her mind. She told him he shouldn't have pretended to be Isaac and tricked her. The spirit expressed regret, realizing he was just a hair's breadth away from making her his. He wanted to take her soul so she wouldn't return to the world of the living. The spirit smirked and said they take the form of her memories from the heart. She froze, hearing that everything she'd seen was a projection of her deepest desires. The girl cut straight to the chase, asking him who he really was. She started rattling off possibilities, and he snapped at her to shut her mouth. He said if she spoke that name, they were both toast. She was about to say Oranto, the most powerful witch from the legends. It took the combined might of the entire church and the kingdom of Leonia to take her down. The evil spirit roared at her to get lost and not go looking for that cursed woman. It hit Lily hard how scared he got after she said those words. The second he shifted his form, she knew he wasn't just some run-of-the-mill evil spirit. She figured out he must have heard about the lunar curse. The spirit told her to give up, saying she couldn't do anything without Leonia's sacred power. Lily just smiled back and asked him for help. He smirked, asking what she planned to pay him for it. The girl got wary when he mentioned her body, mind, and fortune. Before she could react, a huge cage dropped on top of her. It crashed to the ground, trapping her with no way out. The spirit casually put his hand on the cage, telling her it was too late to back out now. A surge of energy crackled from the top of the cage, moving downwards. He said that in an hour, her soul and body would be separated forever and become his meal. Lily immediately realized she was trapped in a soul-eating cage. The spirit smirked and said she was already on the verge of collapse after the banishment incantation. He added that she wouldn't be able to see his true form or learn about his past. The girl calmly stated that the answer to that was pretty damn obvious. She said his name was the Kraken of the Deep, hitting the bullseye. The spirit screamed in agony, feeling his entire body and cage crumble apart. Even the fist he tried to punch her with disintegrated into nothing. The collapse created a gust of wind, but Lily stood her ground. She looked ahead and saw the spirit's true form, free of the darkness. Standing before Lily was an unusually striking, blue-haired young man. Lily smiled and said that an evil spirit whose name is known can't cause any harm. She also mentioned he was a knight of Aranto, but she dumped him, and he died on the battlefield by the Western Sea. After that, the church brutally cremated him and obliterated his remains. They even put his skull on display as a trophy on the throne. The Kraken glared at her, annoyed, and asked why she was telling him all this. She smirked and asked if he knew what she could do with his remains. Looks like she managed to spook him, since they contained a piece of his power. He tried to dissuade her, knowing he'd become even weaker without them. Lily grinned triumphantly and ordered him to help her with the curse. The Kraken said that the soul of his former mistress was dormant. He added that he could enter the ocean of her consciousness and steal the witch's grimoire. The kid flashed a confident grin, saying that place definitely had what she needed. Even with the manipulation and blackmail, Lily genuinely thanked him for it. Just minutes ago, he was trying to offer, but she was still being nice. He said the guy she's trying to save is one seriously lucky dude. He blushed, saying he'd be right back and wouldn't let her become another victim of the Stewarts. Kraken was surprised to find out she didn't know about this story. He revealed that a woman had already performed a ritual here before her. Even though she was abandoned after giving birth to her son, she still prayed for her husband's success. Lily had no idea that son was currently bound in chains. Catherine reminded Isaac again how his mother pleaded with the spirits. Even though she was loyal, they used her like a puppet and tossed her in the dungeon. Catherine smirked, saying love makes people do some dumb things. Isaac just kept listening to her arguments, not saying a damn word. After a short pause, he muttered quietly that it was all a load of bull. Catherine leaned in with a sneer and told him to say that again. Isaac saw his chance and grabbed her hand in a heartbeat. With one swift move, he snapped the chains and slammed the maid to the floor. He locked eyes with her and said that Lily wasn't anything like his mother. Isaac twisted her arm and said he wasn't exactly a chip off the old block either. Finally, he concluded that he wasn't going to use Lily as some kind of cure-all. Catherine noted thoughtfully that he was faking his weakness on purpose. She yelled, saying all she wanted was to save him. Isaac didn't agree with her methods and gave her a look of utter contempt. He let her go, saying a servant wouldn't have the nerve to lock up their master, like she did. The man stated that she bound him because of her desire to have him. She'd been plotting all this for ages, driven by her intense jealousy of Lily. He added that he makes fun of love because he's scared of his own forbidden feelings. Isaac looked at the maid and demanded she admit she loved him. She froze when he added that this forbidden love was driving her insane. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she hid them with laughter. She stood up and said she'd been looking after him since they were kids. Even after that witch attacked, she stuck by him and did everything she could. She broke down, saying she was always there for him, not Lily. Still, she knew she could never be good enough to be his wife. She gave this bitter little smile, realizing it was just impossible. Catherine clung to him and asked if she was doomed to be his servant forever. Isaac calmed down and said he always appreciated how much she cared for him. He wiped away her tears and added that they could never be together. He pulled his hand away and said she knew the reason why. The guy gave a thoughtful smile and stated that they were family. Catherine shivered, totally freaked out when he called her dear sister. No way she thought he'd ever find out about that secret. She recoiled from him like he was completely nuts. She started bawling even harder, asking when he figured it out. He just sighed, like he was exhausted, and said he'd known since they first met. Catherine was so blown away by the truth, she was completely speechless. She saw him turning to leave and had to know where he was going. Isaac calmly replied he was heading to the church, hoping the spirits could bring Lily back. Catherine immediately told him her soul was beyond saving, and he couldn't take such a risk. He just smiled and said he'd already come to terms with the possibility of dying. He was ready to pay any price to get her back, even if it meant dying. Isaac called himself a monster, stained with blood and sins. He turned to Catherine and asked her to write a will, if she cared about him. Before he could even finish, a familiar girl burst into the room. Isaac couldn't believe it was all working out this fast. Standing before him was Lily, the one he was willing to give his life for. Her face was full of confidence, like she'd figured something out. She came right out and asked what was going on and why he was there. Lily ran up to him, saying she'd searched the whole damn castle looking for him. She also got pissed about his gloomy talk about a will. She had a million more questions, but he just cut her off with a hug. Isaac was like, totally blown away that she was alive and standing right in front of him. He immediately started grilling her, asking if she'd been hurt by any evil spirits. The next second, he just collapsed to the floor, and these weird marks started spreading all over him. His whole body, even his face, was covered in these nasty-looking symbols. Lily instantly rushed to his side, trying to get him to wake up. Catherine ordered her to let go and stop making things worse. Looks like the maid had really started to get on her nerves in that short time. Catherine cradled his head in her lap and called Lily a disobedient brat. She added that her deal was done, and she had no business being in the castle anymore. The maid said she was thinking about performing a spirit summoning ritual for him. She gave Lily a real dirty look and figured she'd bailed at the last second. Lily froze when she added that it was all because she was so weak. She marched right up to Catherine and smack, laid one on her. Guess the maid didn't think delicate Lily had it in her to do something like that. Lily asked if she always just blamed everyone else when things went sideways. She added that, at this rate, Isaac could end up pushing up daisies. Lily ordered her to get 20 candles, lamb's blood, pearl powder, and salt water ready. She yelled at her, demanding she get a move on, ASAP! Catherine was taken aback when she really thought about that ingredient list. Lily mentioned she'd consulted the spirits and figured out how to break the curse. The maid felt a pang of shame for all the crap she'd talked about her before. Meanwhile, Lily bit her finger and started drawing a symbol with her blood. Slowly, she traced a pentagram right onto the furry beast's paw. As soon as she finished, he started transforming, bit by bit. You could tell by the fur, which was gradually disappearing. She announced that this was just the first step in lifting the curse. Catherine went right back at it, accusing her of desecrating his body. Lily asked her if she had some holier-than-thou way to break the curse. She grabbed a blade and held it to the annoying maid's throat. The girl said she could make her pay if things went south. She ordered her to do her maid duty and help her out. Catherine bit her lip, feeling the blade press against her neck. Just a couple minutes later, she brought her all the ingredients she needed. Lily realized that these materials were nowhere near what she needed. She sighed wearily, knowing they didn't have much time left. Catherine called her cocky and promised she'd regret it if she screwed up. Lily stayed silent and dipped her finger into the balsam juice. She slowly ran it across her lips and recited the incantation. The girl kissed Isaac, making sure the juice and her blood got on his lips. Catherine watched everything light up and felt a surge of jealousy. It stung that someone else, not her, had been the one to save him. Lily figured all that was left was waiting for him to wake up. Catherine cried tears of joy, seeing the curse was finally broken. In that instant, Isaac opened his eyes and saw the girl. She was beaming, so happy that they'd actually pulled it off. The guy wondered to himself if he was actually still alive. Even so, there was one thing that was still bugging him. He looked back at Lily and asked who was standing behind her. Kraken smirked, recognizing the very familiar face. He asked if she seriously wanted to save this weak and sickly dude. Lily called him out for dissing the crown prince like that. Knowing how weak he was, she carefully helped him up off the floor. After a short silence, Isaac announced that this castle wasn't exactly thrilled to have uninvited guests. Looks like he noticed Catherine tried to skewer him with his own sword. The girl was shocked to realize she was staring at a straight-up mirage. Isaac made it clear that he, especially, wasn't thrilled with uninvited undead guests. He stood up and said he'd seen his portrait in forbidden texts. He was known as Guardian of the Deeps for some ancient underwater people and a knight of an ancient witch. Isaac figured out pretty quick that he was dealing with a kraken demon. The spirit smirked when Isaac asked why he was hanging around Lily. He called Isaac out for the way he was treating the person who saved his life. Looks like the crown prince was having a hard time believing he was rescued by a kraken. Lily jumped in and said she couldn't have lifted the curse without his help. Right before the ritual, he gave her a witch's book that Oranto had left behind. He handed her the book and said it would become a part of her consciousness now. The kraken told her to say Oranto's name 3 times whenever she wanted to read it. Lily thanked him and asked what she'd have to give in return. Turns out, the kraken asked her to make him her personal spirit. Lily saw Isaac's surprise and explained that she agreed to it for the sake of the book. She confessed she let him move into the bracelet and smuggled it out of the church. The kraken backed her up, saying he couldn't stray more than 30 feet from her now. Seemed like Isaac's frustration was really tickling him. Hearing all this, the crown prince rubbed the bridge of his nose, exhausted. After all that went down, they crashed, waiting for the next day to roll around. Isaac had already bounced back from his weakness and was carefully picking out his outfit. He was getting all dolled up like he had some big event coming up. A couple minutes later, Lily walked into his room, all smiles. She bowed, happy that he was finally free from the curse. The girl added that he was once again the crown prince, a godsend from above. Looks like Isaac's already forgotten what moments like these feel like. He let out a breath and asked if that's really how she saw him. Lily smiled and said she should probably head back to the duchy. After all, the estate and the servants she left behind were waiting for their heiress, and the curse was lifted. After those words, she turned and left without saying goodbye. She figured he'd let her go, but Isaac begged her to stay. He got her attention and asked if she'd just forgotten everything. He reminded her that just recently, he publicly announced she was his fiancée. Lily immediately protested, awkwardly saying it was all just a game. Isaac said that wasn't true and gently kissed her hand. He genuinely begged her, a girl so special, to stay with him. The man turned his gaze to her, like he was finally baring his soul. Lily was stunned by his sudden feelings, so similar to her own. She threw herself into his arms, a gesture louder than 1,000 words. Isaac realized that she shouldn't be the one leaving this castle. First and foremost, there was someone else he needed to get rid of. Sometime later, he paid a visit to his sister's room. He made her uneasy, greeting her with complete silence. Catherine saw the mood he was in and sensed the end was near. His eyes said it all, filled with nothing but contempt. The girl felt ashamed, but she couldn't get a word out. She jumped up and said she was beyond redemption. Catherine was ready for any punishment, just to stay by his side. She was practically begging him, offering him any use of her skills. She was ready to give him her life, but he cut her off. He said he wasn't interested in rehashing things and called for the guards. They dumped her bags at her feet, then he said he was there to kick her out. Catherine couldn't believe he'd make such a harsh decision. She started arguing that he couldn't manage without his right-hand woman and confidant. Finally, she blurted out that she was practically family and should be spared. Isaac didn't say a word, but he could feel his blood start to boil. She played the sympathy card, saying her dad owed her and her mom. Catherine broke down in tears, accusing him of not valuing their family bond. Isaac stated that this was exactly why them breaking up would be for the best. He told her he didn't need a maid trying to run the show. Isaac got even angrier, adding that she had the nerve to treat his fiancé like crap. He said they could see each other again when she dropped her crazy demands. Isaac ended things right there, wishing her all the best. She dropped to her knees and asked how he could just throw her away like trash. She tried to get through to him, but he was stone cold. Catherine started saying that Lily was the one who ordered him to punish her. Isaac just gave her this look, like he was telling her to shut her trap. He said he wanted to kick her out of the kingdom, but Lily stood up for her. The guy tossed a piece of paper at her feet with a location on it. Not long before all this went down, he'd opened up to Lily about what was eating at him. He figured they needed to put some serious distance between each other. Lily begged him to at least let her stay in the Crescent Moon Kingdom. She showed some heart, understanding that he had regrets. He was ready to be a real hard ass, but her words made Isaac change his mind. The girl smiled and said she used to have a sister too. Even though they were enemies, Lily didn't feel any joy in revenge after losing her. Right now, all she felt was crushing loneliness. She stroked the guy's head, trying to ease his worries. Lily said she didn't want to make him choose between her and his only sister. Isaac didn't say a word, but her words really weighed on his decision. Lily offered to help get her a job at the herb store. She smiled, giving him hope that one day Catherine would sort things out. Isaac was still mad at his sister, but seeing Lily's smile warmed his heart. Meanwhile, Catherine was just reading the letter her brother sent. She felt a mix of bitterness and sadness, but she appreciated him looking out for her. The second she replayed his words in her head, A sob ripped through her chest. All Isaac could do was watch her carriage disappear from the castle grounds. He said goodbye, claiming it was the only way she could ever be free. Now, he could finally live in peace and love with the one who'd become his home.